Timelines as far as athletics, we're still on schedule to be baseball, softball in April, football in the fall, varying weather maybe sooner, but that's what they're sticking to so far. We have a meeting tomorrow or Wednesday with the city. We're going to talk about the gas station that's going in across the street, concerns that have been raised on that, and we verified some codes and some items, so we will have a sit down with the city on Wednesday. Kind of blew through. Chiller, no status change because that won't be till January. Elementary refresh, we're still, we've engaged the architect to go ahead and give us some estimates so we can figure out what exactly we can do. Elementary school, we had 50% CDs released Friday, so everybody's reviewing those. We'll have some rough budgets to see where we fall there.
And the September meeting will actually have the 100% CDs to be approved, as well as the contractor recommendations for the junior high refresh for September.
Any questions or discussion?
Well, I did notice on the way over here that the contractor started on the boring for the traffic signal.
Yes.
Are we going to try to get that on prior to school opening? Obviously, it's going to be a little.
It's going to be an ongoing effort, and for right now, I don't mean
this.
I know, and back months ago, that's why I keep telling them, I'm like, man, y'all, we thought it was going to be before. Well, TxDOT made some changes to the actual lights themselves, maybe 2 months ago. But in the meantime, they've been doing the road work, the striping.
Right.
We did have some weather issues with the road work. But you will see alternate lane closures in the next few weeks until that signal's up.
I was just hoping for school's sake before December, before we open the high school.
Oh, yes, we
that the
have
light
to.
would be operational a couple of weeks or a month for traffic patterns to get used to that light being there. But
Yes.
it's going to be a zoo with all the new people.
Yes, I say in the next 6 weeks we'll
Good.
have a functioning light, yeah.
Great.
And it needs to be up and tested, and we have to close out. That's a separate permit with the city that has to go through its own separate closeout. So we'll have to have all that in order before we can even get the occupancy of the high school. So,
Okay,
yes.
great.
And I think it is important to note, because I've heard it from a couple of individuals, including the county judge and county commissioner, that, some people are going to be really upset that we're not letting people enter that high school from Link. And I wanted to be noted that that was a requirement of the city, that be a road that's primarily used for buses and for maintenance traffic, not main traffic. They want all main traffic on 123. So I know that, yes, people are used to coming down Link and they're like, I've got to go all the way to the end and go to 123. Yes, that's a requirement of the city. So we will continue to work with that as we open up the athletics complex. But as of now, that is what the city is requiring.
Any other comments on any of the construction projects or any of the bond information that they've presented? All right, thank you guys for being here tonight. Okay, and with that, we will move on to item number 6 on the agenda, our action items. Item A is going to be SB Cert 13, consideration and possible action on the EFB policy regarding library materials.
Board, we presented to you the various policy changes that you can adopt related to the Senate Bill 13 change to the library policies. We already have our librarians utilizing some of the restrictions that started last year, and they have been to training and they are working with the Library Association, developing our guidelines. You can see in the policy it says superintendent will create the administrative guidelines of how we are monitoring. We've learned how to use our system so that parents will be alerted about not only what is in our library, but what your child is actually checking out, what's in circulation. So we've already worked on those things, as well as classroom libraries. So what we are coming to you today, board, with is action for the EFB policy. There are two options. One is the alt policy, which we are recommending, which of course still has opportunity for parent input, employee input, student input about what's in the library. The librarians must come to you 30 days prior to asking for permission to purchase the library books. So that will be like a 2 reading policy where we'll come with the list. At that time, the list also has to become public to our community of what we're asking to purchase, and then the following month, you will be asked to approve those purchases. So that's in both policies. Where they differ is that the first policy says, you may have a SLAC committee where we have the input of a particular committee from the community and the parents, or you can go with the plain EFB, which says you're going to go ahead and do that. The alt says we're going to wait for the petition of 10% of the population or 50 people to request it. So we are recommending the hold for that petition just to try to expedite the process. But again, if you choose to go with the EFB, we certainly will respect that, and we'll start trying to recruit for a SLAC committee. We do struggle to recruit for folks to be a part of DEIC as well as our SHAC committee. So that is one of our concerns, is that we would have a full and robust committee if we did start one.
And we discussed a lot of this at our July meeting too. Is there anything to add to that, or does anybody have any questions or things that didn't get answered when we discussed it last month? If we don't have any discussion on that, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to approve the adoption of EFB local alt for acquisition of library materials.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion to approve the alt policy was made by Dr. Gosh and second by Clint. Any other discussion? If none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? And that motion is going to carry 7-0. We will move on to action item 6B, notice of meeting to discuss the budget and tax rate 2025-2026. Mr. Newhoff is going to come present that information to us.
Good evening. This is a required position that we have to take. We have to take this and approve it, have it approved by the board. In order to have it published in the newspaper, it has to be published in the newspaper 10 days in advance of the actual meeting that we will hold on August 27th to adopt the budget and the tax rate. We're asking you to approve this at the total tax rate is 1.2228 per $100 value, 0.7228 for the maintenance and operations, and 0.50 for the debt service fund. And the 0.50 for the debt service fund is the maximum rate that we can take and charge. And I actually did have a conversation with somebody about going over that rate, because when somebody did these calculations for us, when the tax office did the calculations, they were calculating that the tax rate had to exceed the 50 cents. And I said, I can't do that. And I was told, yes, you can, but you will probably not sell any bonds again. You will not be able to sell bonds again anytime in the near future if you go over that rate. So we will be able to fund the 50 cent rate will fund the debt service that is coming up next year based on our calculations. So, and we do have, if it's off some, we do have enough fund balance. Because the one thing that, and for the next year that is concerning to me is going to be where we will fall on frozen taxes as they get adjusted for the new homestead exemption. Just as in we got impacted by that SB2 and SB12 in the past, it's going to continue to haunt us as we move forward. So I'm I'm not, they had a number on there for what they said it would be. I'm not sure that that number will be accurate, but I used the number that they gave us to, and it does give us enough, it does fund the 50-cent rate does fund the tax rate, along with the state aid that we're gonna get on the hold harmless. And for the budget, as I'm going with it, we really need to, I needed to settle on one revenue projection system, so I'm going to use the Moat Casey system. It seemed a little more conservative, although as Omar has published additional adjustments, his has gotten closer to the Moat Casey, so I feel very comfortable that the Moat Casey projections are going to be as accurate as any other projection system. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
If there aren't any questions for Mr. Newhoff or any discussion among us,
I'll move for a motion.
I move to approve the notice of public meeting date August 27th, 2025 to discuss the 2025-2026 budget and proposed tax rate.
Second.
Okay, the motion made by Clint and second by Donna. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? That motion's going to carry 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into item number 7 on our agenda in discussion and information. We're going to start with our accountability update.
Good evening, President Sartain, Dr. Epley, members of the board. Tonight we come to you with our projections for 2025 for our accountability update. I've been sharing information in our Friday memo and the data packet just to keep you abreast of all the things that are being published, but our official scores with designations, if we earn any of those, will be August 15th, which is this Friday. We do have a program in our Edufordia system called Axiom, and Axiom is a place where we use our data. As we receive data from the state, we upload it into our Edufordia program and use that as a prediction. So when we're talking about our overall score for the district, they are measuring 3 specific domains: our student achievement, our school progress, and our closing the gaps. Our district is projected to end overall in the B category again this year, which is a great feat. We have many things that we are working towards as far as our goals, and I have shared those with you in the PowerPoint presentation, so let me advance. These are our overall score of an 82 for the district, student achievement 83, our school progress 81, and our closing the gaps is 80. Hopefully you can see that well on your screen. It's not very bright up there. So calculations. We are monitoring our projections with the state in addition to our projection with our comparison groups. So if you are looking across from 3rd grade, you can see that we are exceeding in reading. We are exceeding the state, also the region. If it's green, we are above the state. If it's yellow, we are either just below the state or close with the state. If it was red, we'd be 10 points or more below the state. So I've been reviewing this with all of our stakeholders. All of our teachers went through professional development with us on Wednesday, and they reviewed this same chart, and we asked them to identify trends. And if you look at this, you can see that our strategies need to be emphasizing rigor. So the yellow is showing that our students are needing to improve in the area of high level. So these are students that are actually mastering the STAR test 90% or better. We are doing well in approaching. For a long time, we were only doing well in approaching. Now we are moving over into the needs category. We do have some areas at the junior high level that we will be focusing on. I should note that that 7th grade math assessment was only 70 students. The other 80 or more were in accelerated math. They took the 8th grade STAR test for mathematics. So if you look at our 8th grade math, you'll see some exciting information. We have several students that are going to move into 8th grade algebra, probably our largest number of enrolled students in 8th grade algebra. And then we are tracking the freshman class as the students move into high school. That class has been historically performing low in all things reading. So social studies we know is a challenging test for 8th graders. but also they were low performing in our reading test and our science test. So been meeting, today we had a science specialist from Region 20 here targeting our 5th grade and our 8th grade science teachers, reviewing their new TEKS, because this year all of our science students will be tested with new TEKS that go into effect this year. So our science STAR test from this 24-25 school year will not be the same assessment that they'll take for 25-26. So we just want to make sure that our teachers are prepared for that, in addition to achieving rigor in the classroom. So we took them through a professional development on Wednesday with questioning strategies. I do feel like that is our greatest impact into instruction, is thinking very, internalizing and thinking very clearly about which questions we want to ask students to engage them in conversation in their classrooms. So if you look at the, Jason, oh, there we go. Our next steps, our pathway to an A, our goal is to achieve an A rating, and this is something that we discuss in our PLC meetings as we do our data reviews. These are things that we discuss in our planning as we're working on our curriculum. So first we did a detailed campus level data review with all the campus principals. That happened in mid-July as we got our preliminary data, and they'll be talking tonight about their campus strategies and their campus steps moving forward. We also have to make sure that our campus improvement plan is aligned with our accountability goals. So we are working on a redesign for our campus improvement plans, which we'll be bringing to all the school board at the September meeting with our needs assessment, also outlining the targets for the groups that we see as not meeting our year's worth of growth. And I have some exciting news in that. I've got 2 cohorts with me tonight to talk a little bit about some of the growth of our targeted populations that we've made in this last year. We're going to be looking at professional development. Obviously, we did a district-wide survey. One of the things the teachers highlighted was professional development. So we've done a good job of getting feedback from them about what specifically they need to feel supported and to be successful in the classroom. And resources, of course, is at the center of that too. Are they getting the resources that they need? Beyond that, the coaching that they're receiving, the data reviews, are we providing for them professional development that is meaningful and relevant to the needs of the classroom? We're prioritizing engaging student-centered instruction. We know as we are doing our walkthroughs as a team, a leadership team, that students perform well when they're highly engaged in the classroom, and we're teaching bell to bell, and we're giving them activities that are engaging at a high level. Dr. Epley did a great job of presenting some options for them. Student choice was one of our professional development sessions that she led this week as well, which I think she shared in the Friday memo, and that really was a good way for teachers to see engaging activities other than death by worksheet. So frequently monitoring STAR readiness standards. We do this with our blueprints. Every STAR test has a blueprint, and it tells the teacher the content, what will be tested, how many readiness standards, what the questions will look like, and then it gives examples. So we go through the blueprints with them. We go through what constructive responses look like for their test, because every test now has writing embedded, and if students do not write to the prompt and they do not answer the questions effectively, they're not getting those points, and those count for 10% of the overall test. So teacher observation is super important. With TIA now in our district, we are also upping our game for T-test observations. We're asking teachers how they want to receive feedback from us, what will be meaningful for them when we're in their classrooms, and really establishing that partnership so that T-test is meaningful and valuable for them, and it's not just a formality that we do. We're going to hold some data nights this year. We really want parents to understand what the data is and how they can access it. There is a parent portal where they can see their child's historical testing information from the very first time they took a STAR test. So it goes all the way back to 2012 for students that need that information. And then each campus will talk a little bit about this, but student data monitoring, whether that be goal setting sheets or data notebooks or reflection tools. I'm very excited to see the things that are happening on the campuses so that students also are taking ownership of how they're doing and making goals for themselves based on their progress with our state accountability. So I have behind me 2 of my wonderful partners, Letty Miller and Kaylee Arliss, are our ESL instructional specialists, and they're going to talk about how we performed in TELPAS, which is one of the monitors that help us with our student progress domain and student achievement.
Hello, President Sartain, Dr. Efley, members of the board. My name is Kaylee Arliss. I am the ESL specialist for pre-K through 5th grade, and
I'm Letty Miller, ESL specialist for junior high and high school.
so what you see before you are our TELPAS performance levels. Just a quick reminder, TELPAS is the Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System, which Texas uses to measure the student progress for language acquisition for emergent bilingual students in the English as a Second Language program. The goal here is to score a composite score of 4 or advanced high, and they also must score at least an approaches on STAR or EOCs, or on the Iowa test if they're in a grade level that does not take STAR or EOCs, in order to reclassify or exit the program. So this breakdown shows you our percentage of where students are at each performance level. As you can see for grades K through 2, we have most of them in the advanced level, which is really exciting because we can make that progress to get them to that advanced high this year. And out of those 52, only 31 were eligible to reclassify because students are not eligible until 1st grade to exit. And then out of that 117 in the 3rd through 12th grade chart, you'll see again, advanced is where a majority of the students are, and out of those 3rd through 5th graders, there are 54 of them. So pre-K through 5th grade, or 1st grade through 5th grade, we exited 17 students, really excited. 12 of those were at the intermediate school, and 5 of them were at the elementary school.
And for the junior high and high school, we had 63 total testers. And out of those 63, 3 were newcomers. That means it was their first year here in the U.S. And 60 are long-term learners. That means they've been here, most of them, since pre-K. So out of those students, out of those 63, 13 exited the program, 7 from junior high and 6 from the high school. And together, we was 30 students, and if we count all the testers that could possibly reclassify from end of 1st grade to 12th grade, we reclassified 19% of this population, which is the biggest number we've ever had in the 10 years that I've been here. So we're very excited about this.
Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you.
Thanks for having them.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Good evening. I was told I have 2 minutes, so we'll get right to the point here. 86 overall, 89 on the student achievement. Really frustrating. It's like that Super Bowl where the guy got to the 1-yard line, just could not get across the end zone. But that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, wait, closing the gaps. We've made some of the most progress we've made there in the last few years, so really exciting. That's at an 80. Obviously not as high as we want it to be, but we've made some progress in our sub-pops, and I'm really happy that's getting where it needs to be. Okay, so with that, Ms. McMullen mentioned this earlier. When you look at our meets and our masters, we finished ahead of meet scores in the state in all 5 categories, but 2 didn't even hit the 60 mark that we want. We finished behind the masters in 4. And I'm talking to Ms. McMullen, other people, other high school principals I was in the Harvard cohort with. It jumps off the chart as, it's a rigor situation. Are we as high as we need to be? Thus, our alignment is to get the rigor at the right levels. Let me use one of our, I'm not going to say which one, EOCs as an example. We looked at the data the 2 teachers had taught it. And if they had both been the alignment the same way as the one that performed better, they would have been even higher than where they were. And so that's the alignment we're talking about we want to get everyone to. That's not just in our EOCs, but also when you look at our TSI math, from geometry and stuff like that, then that's the alignment we're looking for in a lot of these things. So student talk, level of questioning and writing, are we doing the same alignment and rigor in the classes that we need to be at, the level we need to be at? So our target is to raise that master percentage by 5% and get 60% in all 5 categories on meets. That would put us above that 89 real quickly in the student achievement. So the other major factor we're really looking at is CCMR, how to get that where it needs to be. So we've added the college prep class for our seniors in math and reading. And if I was to take those numbers to last year's numbers, those kids are as successful as we believe they're going to be. The last bullet point down there already says we're well over 80% and we'll be very close to 90. But that's the biggest difference, is that TSI numbers, and we're taking care of all of that with our college prep math. So we've developed also a robust plan to emphasize the college and career readiness. We have class nights being planned where we're going to bring in each class, the parents and the kids. This is if you're a freshman, this is what you need to be doing. This is a sophomore, this is what you need to be doing. Junior, senior, etc. And some other events that we have up there. Structured tutorials for all students with Edgenuity and Khan Academy. We're taking 2 days a week. We're emphasizing to our teachers that they're going to have to do more before and after school tutoring, because we're going to be focusing on the TSI, the SAT, and ACT preps during some of our advisory periods this year. So our target is to increase by 5% our ACT and SAT performance, and our target is 75% at the end of the year, at least the CCMR, but again, the college prep class goes as we expect it will, it'll be way higher than that.
Can I ask a question before you switch over to Ms. Butenagel? What is our current participation rate with the SAT and the ACT testing?
I don't have that number right in front of me.
Okay.
We'll get that to you,
Can you
though.
get that for me, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The part of the intent of that is to go that out. And on that note, I think I mentioned up there, but I was watching the time. We're going to have days where we come in and prep kids for this, and we are in the process of looking at it to be a site for these things too.
I know
So
that's
that will
something
go
we've
up
been
significantly.
discussing. Okay, thank you.
All right, so looking at the junior high, we are sitting at a 76. We did come up 3 points from last year. And our TELPA scores really helped us in that closing the gaps category, moving up to a 72. We saw quite a bit of growth in our reading scores. And like Wendy said, our math, our 7th grade math, for the first time we took the advanced route. So our 7th graders that were in advanced math were taught mostly the 8th grade, or all of the 8th grade TEKS. So they took the 8th grade tests this year, leaving, you look at it, our lowest population in 7th grade math. So we have some work to do there. But I have to say I'm very proud of my staff, because last year we had a big mindset change. We didn't have PLCs. We did not have common planning period. We worked in silos. And moving into this year, you can feel the difference. And I'm very excited about that. We did an all-in, hands up that I don't think has ever happened at the junior high. So I'm excited to see where we go as we continue this. So in the next slide, just a few things we're doing. Like Wendy talked about, a lot of our training focused on how do we elevate our meets and master scores. We did training on questioning, not only in the district level, but we did it in-house as well. We talked a lot about student discourse. How can students talk and collaborate? And how do we make this instruction rigorous, and what does that look like? It's not extra work, but how do we elevate the assignments we're doing, that we're looking to making sure we're meeting the TEKS, we're not just filling in the blank. We also met with our science and social studies team, and we took last year's release test, and everybody pulled their TEKS out, and they really looked at how it's not just an 8th grade test, but there are so many things that 6th and 7th grade must cover. And that helped in realizing that it takes the entire group, although they take the test in 8th grade, they have to start learning it in 6th grade and remembering it from 6th grade all the way to 8th grade. We did do some targeted movement, especially in math. We also were able to hire a new 8th grade social studies teacher who has her TIA certification in 8th grade social studies, and I'm really excited about that, although she did tell me she's not Wonder Woman. But I said, we gotta figure it out. So we did some movement there, again, moving around some math a little bit to help support some of those areas where we need to close those gaps. And then with the addition of our new assistant principal, Ms. Shriver, we've really been talking about PLC and how do we elevate that to the next level. We started with having a PLC and meeting weekly, so now the next steps, which will include actually rehearsing, and it's okay, we're a team, we're working together, we're not embarrassed by it. Some closing the gaps things we're working on. We did have some intervention classes. We've also added a resource class that will support our special education students that are pretty low, below grade level. So that intense specialization will support those kids while we work on closing those gaps in meets and masters with our other classes. And we did purchase Edgenuity to support during our Panther Time intervention. We will continue Panther Time, working in reading and math intervention. We also added an ESOL class. That's to support our emergent bilingual kids. And these are our kids that are coming new to the country, or newer the first 3 years, where they will have a class that will support learning the language and helping them with their classes. And finally, last year we approved adding an ESL paraprofessional that will go in and supporting classes as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. So Navarro Intermediate, currently we are sitting at a B. For the overall score, 84. At closing the gaps, an 87%. And then our two lowest areas are student achievement and school progress. So some things that we're working on, just as Tori said, and it's not up there, but we have made some strategic moves with teachers that were already on our campus and switching some grade levels around. But on the student achievement part, focusing more on that intentional planning, more deep dives during those PLCs and data transparency for our campus. We've been doing the student data folders. We are also going to implement the individual teacher data folders, and then identifying those gaps during PLCs. Students, as well as those students that we can push to the next level. Implementing more problem-based learning and focusing on more student-led discussions around those complex texts. School progress, improving constructive response writing across all content areas, being more strategic in our high-level questioning, improving the retention of the academic vocabulary, working on those prescriptive concepts and TEKS during our win time, more small group instruction, continued use of our data spreadsheets along with those student data folders, and implementing some math intervention into our schedule. For the past few years, it's been reading intervention teachers only, and we're going to use them and do some math as well this year. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board. My parents love us so much that I just left. So pardon me for walking in late to meet the teacher. What you'll see up here is our map reading data. I brought the leads in early before the staff came in and said, what does this look like to you? And a lot of them were really proud about where we stood. These are national normed assessments, and I asked them, you know, if we're sitting in the 69th percentile, where does that put us against everybody else? And what I found is, like, through digging through questions, we didn't have a lot of answers. And so I told them that's okay, that's where we start. We have to have a purpose, and even if we have STAR or accountability on our test, or we don't, we send those kids to a STAR tested place, and so we're gonna start living in data as well. And it's going up on our walls, so we've got 4 blank, open, canvases ready to post data, and I told the teachers we won't hide from each other. We have a really good thing, and Ms. Wilson started something there that's created processes and procedures that I'm so thankful to come into, but we're not perfect. And I told the teachers that most of our teachers, even at a 75% growth measure, I said, how many parents did you look at and say I didn't grow the other 25% of my class? And so we're having those conversations, and so we're gonna get there together, and hopefully I can find little ways that they can help me and I can help them. But we're gonna look at cohort to cohort this year. So instead of us looking at an 80 percentile meets, I wanna know that every percent of their classroom grew. So I want 100% growth. And that means that even our kids who stay in the red, that they moved. We've got to grow every kid on that campus, because what happens is if we only stick to the kids who don't pass, we miss our meets and masters. If we only teach to our GT kids, we miss the ones in the middle. So having really good conversations in PLCs and talking about who's really strong at something, I want to know what they're doing right, and then I want us to go watch those teachers so that they can come up too. So you'll see a 10% increase in cohort to cohort. So I want my first graders to go up 10% in second grade, and kinder up 10% in first grade. We talked about our action steps utilizing Amplify, which is our new curriculum to support our standards. We want them to align to the state standards and teach best practices for our kiddos. Train teachers on explicit small group instruction. So teachers will tell me, well, we're doing small group, and when I say, well, what are you doing? It's a regurgitation of a lesson that they've learned. But if your kid already got that skill, why would we stay there, right? So it's trying to find those gaps, and then classroom data to track it by teacher and bring it to the hallway so that the entire school can see it. In math, we want to go up 10%. We're sitting in a really good place right now with our incoming kinder to first. They went to Bluebonnet training, but we want to implement an understanding and improving our TEKS. A lot of times we look at a skill and we say, well, they've mastered that skill. But when we look at the verbs, they don't just gather the data, they've actually got to disseminate the data. So sometimes we miss the specificity, even in a first grade classroom, that's going to move us to another level. Utilize interventionists to partner with teachers and strategies. We've got new people coming in and we need them to be just as strong as the strongest teacher on our team. So really proud of my staff for rallying behind a very large campus that is busting but excited. So thank you all so much. I hope to see this campus soar. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, President Sartain, Dr. Epley, board members. When we're looking at career and technical education, I put up a few different items that we can look at. One, our educational CTE membership did increase at the high school by 4%, at junior high by about 60%. Part of that is moving down some of our principles of CTE courses down. We have principles of IT that feeds into our P-Tech. We also have just this year took on principles of business, and I know that we had a really great following there. I want to say Ms. Dillashaw maybe has like 88 kids. So we have a really good following on those, and we have a plan in place to bring down more principles courses to the junior high to give them more options to prepare them once they get to the high school. In addition, some ways that we can look to increase student success in CTE. Coming in December, I had to kind of sit and look and see where we were at and survey from that. We now have a plan in place, and knowing that our industry-based certifications, our teachers need to understand their IBC for their courses. They need to understand how they tie into their TEKS, and they need to be able to make sure that their students are prepared for those IBCs to pass them. We want them passing and earning. We don't want to have a large number of students that aren't able to pass them and failing because obviously they're not getting what they need to in the classroom. So we're working on guidelines for the students to understand the importance of those IBCs. We want to do a letter home to parents so they understand why we have the IBCs in the certain courses, and that knowing what course those students need to be tested and which are IBC courses for those kiddos. And that's just knowing ins and outs of your IBC or industry-based certification. CTSOs, we're going to be increasing our CTSOs. We know we have a huge FFA following. We're going to be bringing in Skills USA, which is another CTSO that a large number of our teachers can, as a kind of a group, can participate in to kind of get their feet wet and start getting those students out to leadership and career development events, because that's a key implementation in our CTE is getting those kids out into those different events, letting them compete and letting them earn those leadership and career development skills. We're also going to be looking at making sure TEKS are aligned throughout. We did move from 130 down to 127, so they do need to go and check that their TEKS, and we worked on that in our professional development last Wednesday, and then also grade checks to make sure that all of our students are where they need to be, and if they're out for a CTSO, that they're out because they're preparing and they're prepared in their classroom. Pre and post tests and CTE courses so that we can kind of get some data at the beginning to kind of see where the kids are, and then again at the end. The majority of our IVC third-party vendors that we are using, such as NOCD, even ICEV, TEKS Ready, have pre and post tests that we can utilize. Relevant programs to study, I did do course audits and went through all of our courses to make sure that they were aligned and our PEIMS coding was correct with our level 1, 2, 3, and 4 sequence courses. In our advisory board, we have a CTE regional advisory board that we share with Seguin, Marion, and ourselves, and then we will have a P-TECH advisory board that will be back in action in order to support that program. Our Panther P-TECH cybersecurity, we did make some changes there in order to make that a better program for our students. We left St. Philip's College to move to Northeast Lakeview College as our new
college partner. It's been a really amazing transition. They are on top of it. There's not a meeting that we don't have every 2 weeks that we don't have 10 to 8 people in there. I can call Dr. Fanning if I need to with any questions. Our new P-Tech instructor just finished her dual credit training last Friday, and she is on board at the same level with those professors, and it has a really great communication and working ability. We'll be working on our outcomes-based measures as we go through and put together our P-Tech leadership team, which will work on all of our artifacts and our blueprint processes. We will also have Cyber Patriots again. Independent consultant, I do bring in an independent consultant for CTE. She does come in and help with curriculum development for some of our new teachers and that new teacher's report. We did find that we had a little bit of a turnover, and some of that turnover was brand new teachers from industry coming into teaching. So in order so that we can retain those teachers, Ms. Johnson comes in and she will work with them in the classroom, she will work with them on curriculum development and making sure that we have the best support and best practices in place for our students and our teachers. I talked a little bit about CT courses moving to the junior high. Ms. Wilson and Ms. Butenagel and I met, and we have a plan in place to move courses down in a reasonable amount of time. And then leadership teams, P-Tech and CCMR, we are working on those in order to make sure we have the right people on those teams, and we're moving forward with processes and procedures in place, because some areas we were missing those, so we want to get those in place to make things better for our students and our teachers. Any questions? That was fast and furious.
Yeah, it was a lot of information, but that was great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So our theme in academic services this year is empower, elevate, excel. We've told the teachers if we empower them with the tools and the resources that they need to elevate instruction, then our students can't help but excel. So I wanted you to hear from the team. This is not just me in academic services. This is a team, and we meet every other week as an academic services team. We talk about our challenges, we talk about our progress, we closely monitor what's going on at all of our campuses. Our principals are empowered with their data. They each led a state of the campus address with their staff. They got high reviews in their feedback forms because we are getting that feedback from our staff. And mostly the teachers are telling us they feel empowered, they feel charged and ready for the school year, and that's what we want when we impact instruction in the classroom. We want them to feel like they have all the tools that they need to be successful, no matter which group of students they're working with. And I do think that our TIA measures are helping with that as well, because it is tracking growth, not just a student. We told the teachers, a student may not be performing at the meets or master's level, but they can still show a year's worth of growth from where they are. So I'm really excited about this school year. I do think that our pathway to an A is established, and at this point, it's your opportunity to ask questions about the information if there's anything specific. I will be doing quarterly reports of our data for you. Each 9 weeks, you'll receive from me a packet similar to the one that I've already shared that will show you our diagnostic pieces that we're monitoring, and there's some good questions coming back to me, so I do appreciate that opportunity to share information with you about where we're heading and what we're working on.
I don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions about any of the information that was presented to us?
One question. I really like the form of hearing from all of the campus leaders. The closer we can get to hearing from the teachers, which that's not in between, is fantastic. So you said you're going to be doing quarterly updates. Will we get to hear from the campus leaders quarterly as well?
Absolutely. Whatever you think is most effective. I personally, when we have these data meetings together, I think it is beneficial when the principals are speaking about their campus-specific goals and what they're doing, but we also have teachers that are ready, willing, and able. They're not always excited about public speaking, but they are excited to share what they're doing in their classrooms, and I think that would be, if that's something that would be agreeable. We try to keep our time limit because I know our meetings can get long, but I definitely would love for you to hear from the classrooms and the exciting things that are going on there as well.
And anything related to academic growth is very important for us to hear, so wonderful. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
All right, if there aren't any other comments or any questions, we will proceed with the agenda and move on to discussion item B, our policy on donations. And this discussion item was requested by a trustee for us to just discuss some of the specifics on our policy.
Board members, you have the policies included in your board book. Do want to emphasize that we started a new process with our groups that do a wonderful job volunteering their service and their time and their donations by starting a superintendent's roundtable at the end of last year, calling in all of our groups that tend to donate to us. And I've included in the background information the agenda from that meeting, which included talking about how they can partner with each other. We know that we have some folks who are kind of double dutying some of the things, and if they would come together, I think they would be successful in achieving their goals that they can't do alone. So we talked through that. We talked about the board members' policies related to donations, as well as resources and tips for those of them who are actual 501c3s. And it's important to note that the policy does not determine that you must take a donation solely from 501c3s, whether they are in good standing with the IRS or not. You can take donations from individuals. They don't have to be 501c3s. And so we talked through that, but specifically about in a fast growth district, the turnover of an organization, a lot of times it's a voluntold thing, you know, hey, you've been in PTO a long time, we need a new president, here you go, and then old people are out the door, right? And they aren't told this is what needs to happen, or maybe when they do get the binder, things seem to be a little out of order, and knowing that here's the resources, here's who you need to contact if you are a 501c3 to see if you're in good standing, here's what you need to do as far as reporting, here's some services that will do the reporting for you. And we saw a lot of big wide eyes and kind of jaws opened up, because I think there were quite a few folks and organizations that certainly have a heart for supporting our kids, but didn't know some of those processes. So we were happy to direct them to those resources. It's important to note that the district does not control those organizations. The board does not control those organizations. We certainly are happy to direct them to the resources to help them, but we don't control those things. We talked a little bit about upcoming initiatives and how we could help support each other to support our students. And we will have those quarterly meetings so that it gives an opportunity for all of those organizations to get together. I know in the past, things like band trailers, where band boosters are trying to raise that money, perhaps another organization is saying we might want to help, but getting them all in the same room and having those conversations, I think, only benefits our students. So we're excited to start that initiative, but I did want to be clear that we do not control those organizations, and that our legal obligation is not connected in any way to those organizations. And we have certainly checked with the board's attorney on that. There is a donation form that goes through the questions of what's allowed and what's not allowed, and we do talk through that, and I bring that to you, and then you have the opportunity to either vote for that donation or to deny that donation, or to accept a portion of that donation but not another portion of that donation. So just wanted to review the policy as per the request from a board member and address any questions you might have.
That quarterly meeting that you started, I can project.
Go right ahead.
Yep. It's excellent. As someone who has been a part of all the PTOs and all of the boosters over the years, 8 years ago when I joined intermediate PTO, they weren't established as anything. So I, alongside my accountant mother, got them established as a 503B and did the bylaws and all the things. And they've been doing great work for decades. So there's that. And then in my time with band boosters, I was treasurer for 3 years, and y'all, I forgot to file my 990 one year because I'm a working volunteer.
That's right.
So I think that starting that collaborative group so that all of those stakeholders can get together and learn from each other is fantastic. Because we have wonderful, generous organizations and individuals out there that are also parents trying to enjoy their kids' activities, and they're running companies and raising money. So that is all wonderful. And you said a couple of things that I was going to say, but I read through all of these policies, and y'all, I am definitely not a lawyer, but what I really got out of it is that our responsibility starts after the money's been accepted.
Correct.
So the responsibility that we, the board, the school district, have on funds that are donated, that's when it starts. How it's raised, who it's raised by, and whether or not they're in good standing with the IRS, which, quite honestly, probably about half of the organizations that donate to our district right now are not in perfect standing. Our responsibility starts after that. So for the purposes of community trust, we are fulfilling our responsibilities as a board and following policies, and I'm glad you've created a venue for organizations that do need a little bit of assistance on a few things. So, yeah.
I want to point out too, just for the sake of it being read into the record and for the community that might be watching online, anytime that we're receiving a donation from any of these organizations, it's always in our consent agenda. And it's always part of an open records request. Anybody can request the information on the donations at any point in time. There's never a lack of transparency with any of this from any of the organizations that raise money and donate money to the benefit of our students. So I just want to say that into the record, and for anybody that's watching at home, it has always been transparent, and it's always been part of our agendas.
I would also note that per the policy, as we talked through, our responsibility is codified in our audit. I know it's preliminary right now, but I'm going to go ahead and celebrate that we did receive our first rating, which is an A, and that is due to an excellent business department that we have, who is cataloging each of those donations, who is asking those questions as we bring those donations to you.
This is just a discussion item, so there isn't any action that needs to be taken. Is there any further conversation that anybody wants to contribute to the discussion before we move on? Okay, if that is it on item 7B, then we're going to move on to 7C, discussing the budget update for 25 and 26.
You have an attachment that showed the budget as it was updated. The only real change in that budget was the addition of the 5 positions that she was asking, that was requested as to hold in case of necessary. That actually carries through and impacts into the future as well. So you can see the bigger change is just what may happen in year 4, where if we go that way now, based on what the law is now and based upon what projections are, we would not have we would only have a 1% increase budgeted at that point. But whether or not that holds, we're going to go through 2 legislative sessions before we get to that point, and everything is going to change again by the time we get there. So just as it did this time, so massively that we have, that's what happened in this last session totally changed what we did with our budget. So we still stay in the positive where we're at for next year. I'm still projecting that we should be in the plus as we end this year. So are there any questions? We now have a solid number for what we will pay out of the interest and sinking fund next year after the bond issue. The bond issue again was successful. We sold out $65 million. That's being deposited this Thursday. So that will increase our debt service significantly next year. But part of that is we're actually paying off $1 million in other debt previously that you had approved last year. So because we did that defeasance, that allows us to pay off a little of that earlier. And considering where those interest rates were a little higher than what they normally were, but still a good rate for where we're standing. So those project out for the future, again, keeping that rate at 50 cents and looking at where we are going to be, what additional bonds we are going to be able to issue in the future as we grow. So are there any questions?
We did talk about some of the adjustments and some of the projections in year 4 when we had our special meeting when we approved the addition of those positions.
Yeah.
So there was some discussion on that then. Is there anything that we want to discuss or talk about with the information that Paul's given us this evening? All right, if nobody has anything, then we thank you for the information and your time. And we will move on to discussion item 7D, the dates and times for our October 2025 Team of 8 training.
And we were able to come up with a date that everybody could meet, and so shouldn't be too much discussion. It is now October 6th at 6 o'clock p.m. in the intermediate library, so we'll be ready for that.
6 to 9, right? That's a 3-hour
Yes,
training.
it is.
Okay. Does anyone need to expound on that? Has everybody got that on their calendars? We're good? Okay, we are going to move into item 8, the superintendent's reports. I did ask Dr. Epley if she would read the projected enrollments into the record this evening, just for the sake of transparency to the community on the differences between our projections and our actual enrollments at this time.
So at this time, we are well above the Q4 demographic report, which should be at peak projection, not first day. However, I do think it's important to note that last year we did have 215 no-shows. And at this point, we are 219 students over the peak projection. So if we hit around the same no-show mark, we would be right at peak projection, which means we are growing, and we are growing much faster than the demographer had projected. And if you'll remember, because of the economy, he decided to be a little bit more conservative in the last approach, and so we will have those quarterly reports, and we'll see if he'll make an adjustment. And of course, we will see when we have children actually in the seats what we actually have. But at this point in time, we are showing a total of 828 students at the elementary school, total of 781 at the intermediate. Junior high, a total of 732, and the high school at 827. If all of those show, we are over our 3,000th student at 3168. Right now, we are approximately 66 kids over at the elementary from the demographic projection, 28 at the intermediate, 36 at the junior high, 89 at the high school. And again, that's an overall increase at the elementary of 142 students, 113 for the intermediate, 143 for the junior high, 123 at the high school, for a total increase of 521 students. The demographer was predicting 250 to 400 students a year, so I'm a little suspect, and like I said, we'll see who actually shows up, and we'll verify any of those folks who are still waiting on paperwork for residency. We know we are still a go-to district, and people are doing everything they can to be here. And so we're making sure we're following our processes and procedures and following up on that. But again, thank you for your reserved positions. We did release 3 of those for the elementary, and I've updated that with Dr. Kaufman in your records of where we are in hiring those folks. We had a couple of really wonderful candidates get interviewed over the last couple of days, and so we're excited about bringing those folks on board. But we will be watching as the students come in and supporting. Biggest challenge for us now, obviously, is the space. We know that the elementary is being built and it'll be able to pull off those kids from the intermediate and from second grade. But as we continue to grow, knowing that that's going to continue to fill up, and we'll be having those discussions with our facilities planning committee as we talk about next steps. The intermediate and the elementary kids grow up. So it's not just taking care of the facility of those kids coming in, because the demographics of the housing coming in is open to those younger grades. They continue to grow up, and so we need the space in the junior high, and as we look towards the future in the high school, we know we have a plan for that as well, but we'll be speaking with the community, talking with the facilities committee, and then bringing you guys a recommendation for our next bond before January, because you'll need to have that bond called if you do indeed to choose to call a bond by February. So we'll be bringing you that information and talking about the next steps in the plan, as well as our capacity, as Paul and I work with Samco and look at what is our capacity in calling for another bond. Certainly we're eager to see the development of whether it's data centers or other things like that to take the burden off of our rooftops for the taxes. But we do need that support to really expand our capacity and be able to provide the facilities, because the students are continuing to come for sure.
All right, thank you for that. The other part of the superintendent's report is the calendar of events. Don't forget to look on that, because activities are starting up. And part of our goals that we had discussed about a self-evaluating board was that we were going to remain and become more visible at a variety of events. So make sure that we're checking that calendar. If there's no discussion about the superintendent's report, we'll move into item number 9, the consent agenda. That contains the minutes from our previous meetings, some of our annual approvals for vendors and things like that. This is where our donations always end up, is in this consent agenda. And then authorizations, and there's a budget amendment in there also. Is there any discussion about any of the items in the consent agenda? If there's no discussion, I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, the motion to approve the consent agenda was made by Donna, second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion's going to carry 7-0. Okay, and then
we have taken care of the issues and information with the item that was in closed session regarding the employment resignations of professional personnel to include the teachers and professionals. There wasn't anything that we needed to approve, so we will not need to go into executive session this evening. So with that being said, our meeting this evening will be adjourned at 7:09 p.m.
Better than 7:30, sir.
Thank you all.